Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at Mina the Hollower. So what the hell is it and why should you care? From the game Steam page, let's read the description. Descend into a frightful world of action-adventure in Mina the Hollower. Take control of Mina, a renowned hollower hurtled into a desperate mission to rescue a cursed island, burrow beneath hazards and monsters, whip foes into oblivion, and gear up with an arsenal of sidearms and trinkets. Explore a vast world filled with pixel-perfect graphics, masterful gameplay, beastly bosses, and infectious music. Encounter a cast of bizarre characters, search out secrets in an array of exotic locales, and illuminate the omnipresent darkness in Mina the Hollower, a brand new game from the developers who brought you Shovel Knight. Or, to use a cliche, it's the Dark Souls version of old school Zelda. You traverse an open world, collect trinkets and upgrades to make your way through dungeons, beat a couple bosses, and get some fuses back to working to restore light to the world. But why should you care? Well, the last line of the Steam description is why I cared. Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is probably one of the few 10 of 10 games I've played. It's a perfect homage to old school Mega Man, but with just enough of a twist on the formula that it stands fully on its own. I absolutely loved it. I love the way they kept adding major content patches that let you play through the game as completely different characters with completely different storylines. Imagine how interesting Mega Man would be if you could play as every robot master and see what they actually want from that world. So, the moment that I saw Yacht Club had released a new game that wasn't just another spin on Shovel Knight, aside from Cyber Shadow, which is also a good game, I grabbed it. Now, before continuing, I want to make one thing clear. This is my initial impressions. I haven't beaten the game yet. I haven't gotten to more than just the first major dungeon and wrapped up just a little bit of side content. So just so we're clear exactly where I'm at, slightly past the first dungeon with some of the side content finished. The game wastes no time letting you know this isn't going to be an easy trip. You start out the way a lot of Dark Souls games start, by getting bashed on by a boss. Granted, if you're good you can beat it and get a piece of equipment early, but the game doesn't expect you to win. You really don't learn the Souls-like mechanics until you go to the next screen. Or I should say the next several screens. When you die, you'll drop all of your bones, which is the currency in Mina, and you'll lose one spark. If you die again, and you have no sparks remaining, all the bones you haven't picked back up, as well as the ones you currently have on you, will vanish. As the game progresses, you can upgrade virtually everything, including your spark capacity. So the game does get more forgiving as you progress. That being said, it definitely doesn't start out forgiving. At least it doesn't if you stick with the default settings. Yacht Club is pretty generous with their settings menu, and you can basically custom tailor any of the aspects of the game that you want to in order to adjust the difficulty. For the sake of this video, I didn't change anything. I left it as the devs, in my opinion, intended for it to be experienced. The controls in combat feel fair, though it can take a minute to figure out how to handle each enemy. That isn't really a bad thing. You will die, but you'll learn. The learning part is the aspect of Soulslikes that a lot of Soulslikes get completely wrong. Difficulty for the sake of difficulty is pointless. Setting you up to fail until you learn how to respond to the game's mechanics is not pointless. Mina lands firmly in the latter camp. Enemies telegraph their moves, and they have a clear area of attack, and the attacks will land in a very predictable way. So as long as you're paying attention, you'll learn how to win, and you'll also learn how to do so pretty handily. Like I mentioned a minute ago, you can upgrade basically everything. The weapons have multiple upgrades that make them more flexible, and not to mention you can actually acquire any of the weapons you didn't pick at the beginning, plus a few. Your basic stats can be upgraded for you to be able to have more defense, attack, and carry more mana, which is what's used for your secondary weapons, so think the items in Castlevania. And you can upgrade your health bar, number of sparks, trinket slots. Basically, if it's a gameplay element, it can be upgraded or modified in some way, shape, or form. And speaking of the trinkets, they're the other aspect that lets you modify the things that you can't just directly upgrade. You can find a metric ton of them, and they all modify the core gameplay in some fundamental way that's hard to replicate otherwise. For example, one lets you walk through anything that would normally slow you, but at full speed. So think some of the thicker water patches, or certain bushes, or as you're going up and down stairs. Instead of being slowed down at those points, you just walk at normal speed. And in a game where the mobs can chase you down and beat on you like you owe them money, that's pretty handy if you're just trying to actually run through the area, which is a smart way to handle running back to where your spark was dropped. Or you have another trinket that will give you one free revive when you die, which is probably the strongest argument for gaining a second trinket slot ASAP. That way this trinket becomes a permanent equip. In other words, you get that bonus life throughout the rest of the game. It's really, honestly, hard to think of anything that's more useful than that singular trinket, which is probably what motivated them to actually let you upgrade trinket slots to carry more. For me, the most important aspect of this game is going to be boss fights. They're what made me love the old school Zelda games. Getting through a dungeon to then find a super cool boss at the end that you had to figure out how you could manage to hit it 3 times to beat it was the best part of the game, and at least partially why I don't particularly like Breath of the Wild. The boss fights in Mina are excellent, at least the ones I've seen. The bosses repeat moves, but you have to learn how to properly counter them and when to time your attacks. Timing your attacks is being the most critical part of these fights. If you're greedy, in traditional Souls-like fashion, you'll pay. They hit way harder than you do, and your heals take time and can be interrupted. Healing in Mina is basically an Estus flask, but feels somehow slower and more vulnerable. So you pause, you go to drink the plasma, which is what it's called, and you have to get all the way through the animation for the healing to take effect. Now granted, it doesn't come in over time. If you manage to get it, you get all of it at once. But you can be interrupted at any point in the animation. By the way, I do believe there's also a trinket that significantly speeds up that animation. But it wasn't until I fought the boss of the first dungeon that I really got to see the full potential of these bosses. I made my way through the dungeon, slowly and very painfully. To finally enter the boss room. It seemed like a good but pretty standard boss fight at first. I nearly killed it on my first attempt, so I knew it wouldn't take too much more time. Then I beat it, and the second phase started. For some reason, the fact that it's a top-down 2.5D game made me forget that bosses can have phases. So for the first time in a long time, I was caught off guard. But it didn't take but a few more attempts to finish it off and to reset the fuses and then restart the spark generator. 1 down, 5 to go. But there's a problem. I just don't really feel like doing more. The gameplay is smooth, I don't feel cheated when I die. The controls react exactly as you expect them to. The enemies look nice. The music is good. The story, though predictable, is not bad. But for some reason, I just don't feel like keeping going. I think I'm going to push through to the second dungeon, maybe beyond, possibly stream my attempts at it, but I just don't find myself really enjoying it. Maybe I came in with too high expectations from Shovel Knight. Maybe since I wasn't really anticipating a Souls-like, the repeated deaths and having to grind out each area until I figure it out just isn't interesting me. I feel like that's probably it. The game is well made, and I've cleared out several Souls games. So Bloodborne to this day is still one of the very few platinum trophies I have. But I kind of need to be in the right mood and mindset going in to really enjoy them. And truth be told, I also probably did expect it to be a little bit too much like Shovel Knight. I had kind of forgotten about the ninja game. I genuinely love Shovel Knight. I think the Treasure Trove edition of Shovel Knight is one of the absolute best bang for your buck investments you can make as a gamer. Maybe my expectations were just misplaced. But it's not even that I like Mina less, it's that I'm not even actively interested in picking it up. But I want to emphasize, I don't see anything objectively wrong with it. So this is firmly a me thing. If I'm trying to give it a truly take my personal feelings and set them aside rating, I would say it's probably around a 9. It's super well constructed, like just on paper, everything looks really good, and it plays really good. But whenever I start letting my emotions factor in and just the way I feel towards the game, I feel like it's more like a 7. So 7 to a 9, that's actually a decently broad range. Now granted, it's still both are on the positive side of the spectrum, but that's a broad range. I don't know. I just don't feel compelled to play it. And that makes me want to give it that 7. So I guess the best way would be just to say, from an objective standpoint, as a game, it's probably in the 9 area. Whenever I factor in that it doesn't seem to keep its hooks in me for whatever reason, it's more like a 7. A strong game, just not what I actually want right now. But we'll see. I'm going to give it one more full dungeon and see how it goes. If my opinion drastically changes after that, I'll, at a minimum, pin a comment down below. I'd say to watch a full video on this or even watch a playthrough, and if it looks fun to you, you're probably not going to regret buying it. Even if you just want something semi-challenging, it's probably worth the buy. The truth is, I really probably just need to go in, tweak the settings, get rid of a couple of the Souls elements, and see what I think of it then. But it's hard for me to make myself do that, because I feel like that takes the core that they were shooting for the game out. So, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, this is just an initial impression, and that's it for my initial impressions. Always remember, if I can beat it, so can you.